Hi everyone, I'm Daniel Agaibi and welcome to my presentation on the gender pay gap. The gender pay gap is a heavily debated topic and is commonly misunderstood. So, my aim is to give you a solid understanding of what the gender pay gap really is. The gender pay gap is a real thing, but it might not be what you think it is. You may have seen or heard the phrase, a woman earns 82 pence for every pound a man makes. This is a phrase that's commonly used all over the media when talking about the gender pay gap, when in actual fact, is completely misleading. It gives the impression that a man and a woman at the same company doing the same job for the same number of hours get paid different salaries, which is not the case at all. That is called unequal pay, which has been illegal since 1970. So let's look at what the gender pay gap really is, what causes it, and how it can be reduced. So, what is the gender pay gap? It's the difference in the average hourly wage between all men and all women. The gap in Britain is currently 18%. This essentially means that if the average man is paid £100, the average woman is paid £82. The key word here being average. As you can see from the line graph, the gap has been falling steadily in recent years, from just over 27% in 1997 down to around 18% today. The main reason for this decline is that the general population has become more educated over the past 20 years. And more importantly, women are becoming more educated at a faster rate than men. This is all great news, but the pay gap still exists, so let's talk about the reasons why. We can't blame the gap on one specific reason. It exists as a result of a combination of factors, and each factor impacts the size of the gender pay gap in different amounts. I'm going to talk about three important reasons for why the average woman is paid less than the average man. Reason number one. At university, there are more women than men in courses that lead to lower paid careers. Recent data shows that there is clear gender division amongst the subjects studied by men and women. Women are significantly more likely to attend and graduate from university, but as we can see from the bar graph on the left, courses such as nursing and education, which have lower earning potential after university, are dominated by women. In contrast, from what we can see on the right bar graph, courses such as computer science and engineering, which have high earning potential after university, are dominated by men. However, all women voluntarily choose their courses. Universities don't have explicit barriers preventing women from choosing higher earning courses, like in STEM. Actually, in many cases, these programs actively recruit women. Now that said, there are likely some underlying barriers and gender stereotypes that prevent women from choosing these higher paid courses. But for whatever the reason, fewer women are entering industries like the tech field. Reason number two. Women disproportionately have other responsibilities, including taking care of family. It's not surprising to learn that women earn less income in the short term if they temporarily put their career on hold to have children. But raising a family also has significant long-term effects. For better or worse, women tend to have more family responsibilities, so they're more likely to work in part-time and therefore earn less income. We can see that out of every 100 women employed, 40 work part-time, and out of every 100 men employed, 13 work part-time. In addition to this, women that work full-time voluntarily work less hours than men and are less likely to work on weekends and holidays. Again, this all means lower incomes. For most economists, this is the main cause of the gender pay gap. Unpaid family responsibilities consume a lot of time, and they limit some women's ability to make higher wages and get promotions. Think of a female lawyer that wants to make partner. If she has kids, she might not be able to, or might not want to put in those rigorous hours that a male lawyer could potentially put in. And the data supports this, since the wage gap doesn't become significant until women hit their 30s. Again, it's important to step back and realize that these are voluntary decisions made by individuals. No one is forcing women to have children and become the primary caretaker. Economists assume that women account for these long-term career and financial losses when they're deciding whether or not to have a family. Now, if this is true, then the majority of the gender pay gap and the fact that there are fewer female CEOs reflects women's preferences and priorities and not blatant discrimination. Reason number 3. Studies have shown that men tend to achieve better economic results in negotiation than women. In many cultures, women are encouraged and expected to be accommodating, concerned with the welfare of others, and relationship orientated from an early age. These goals clash with the more assertive behaviors considered to be essential for negotiation success, which is more in line with societal expectations that men be competitive, assertive, and profit orientated. As a result, women may be more uncomfortable negotiating forcefully on their own behalf, a tendency that's supported by evidence suggesting that they face a social backlash in the workplace for doing so. We've seen the reasons for why the gap exists, so why should we try and reduce this gap? Reducing differences in wages between men and women is high on the political agenda. Understanding these differences is important not only from the point of view of gender equality per se, but also for how best to address low pay and the lack of wage progression more generally. Poverty is increasingly a problem of low pay rather than a lack of employment. The proportion of people in paid work has reached record levels, with female employment having risen especially quickly over the last 25 years. And 2/3 of children in poverty now live in a household with someone in paid work. Understanding the wage gap between men and women is important in its own right, but all the more so now that many families are left in poverty as a result of low wages. So how can we reduce the gap? First, companies can be encouraged to offer jobs with more flexible hours. Studies show that careers that involve independent work that can be done with a flexible time frame have less gender pay inequality. Offering all jobs as flexible would remove the barriers faced by women who are more likely to negotiate flexible working or accept part-time jobs that are often low paid. Creating workplaces with flexible cultures will increase opportunities for everyone, giving people greater choice about the role they play both at work and at home. This brings me on to my next point. Another solution would be to change our traditional gender roles and make it so that women are not primary caretakers. The data suggests it doesn't really matter who works these long and flexible hours to get promotion and who decides to have a flexible schedule to raise children. As it is right now, society tends to expect women to be most involved when raising a child, but this is not set in stone. We can change it. Encouraging men and women to share childcare responsibilities by making paternity leave a more enticing incentive will also help reduce the gap. Finally, improving and expanding the gender pay reporting regulations will help increase pay transparency. In the UK, it's often considered rude to ask co-workers how much money they make, but it would be a lot harder for firms to get away with paying some workers more and some workers less for the same job if they had to report their wages. To conclude, we can see that the gender pay gap does not just impact a woman once in her life. It has a compounding effect that results in a woman's reduced earning capacity over her lifetime. On average, women are less likely to progress as far as men in their career and accumulate less money for retirement. They are also more likely to retire in poverty. This is why it's important for us to reduce this gap.